What is going on, everybody? My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell as you come into the building. Now, today we are here to talk about Jerry Rice. Yes, that Jerry Rice, Pro Football Hall of Famer, College Football Hall of Famer, Jerry Rice. And could he possibly become a head coach at the HBCU level? Could we see it? We are going to talk about that right after the bumper. Stay tuned. What up, people? Thank you all for joining me tonight on this broadcast. Thank you all for joining me tonight on this broadcast as we talk about Jerry Rice. Now, Jerry Rice, as you all know, is the Pro Football Hall of Famer, one of the greatest football players ever to touch the field, one of a few real people that we can really consider a GOAT. Like there's a lot of folks that say, oh, it's the GOAT, oh, it's the GOAT. No. Jerry Rice is quite literally a GOAT when it comes to this football stuff. And so Jerry is now possibly considering an HBCU job. This is something that was not on the table recently. This is part of what I call the prime effect, the prime time effect. When Deion Sanders came to Jackson State, he has made it quite easy and quite entertaining and making it something that a lot of people want to do is take jobs at HBCU schools and help uplift those universities. This is not something that was a trend. This is not something that was a trend 2 years ago or 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. This is a trend that has become because of Deion Sanders and what he has been able to do at Jackson State, Now, what I'm going to do is I have to give the shout out to my guy, Kyle T. Mosley. Kyle T. Mosley did this story with Jerry Rice. We'll read the story. First, I'm going to play for you the audio of Jerry Rice talking about how he potentially wants to coach at an HBCU. This comes from Kyle T. Mosley of HBCU SI, HBCU Sports Illustrated. Now, let's take a listen. This is from HBCU SI. This is Jerry Rice talking to Kyle about potentially taking a job at an HBCU. Let me know if you can hear. Please let me know if you can hear in the chat. If you can't, we'll be sure to correct those audios. But let's take a listen to Mr. Jerry Rice.
Have you ever really contemplated being a head coach?
Not until Deion, Jackson State, because I feel like I played the game for such a long time, and I was so totally committed, and I just poured everything into my career that I didn't have anything left. Because as a coach, you really don't have a life. I mean, coaching is hard, man. It takes up the majority of your time. And with the San Francisco 49ers now, I still just go in and I'm just like a mentor. I just talk to the guys and just pass that knowledge on. But yeah, it takes a total commitment, and you got to be all in. So, but it's starting to cross my mind just a little bit now.
Okay, people. Please let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. You heard from Jerry himself. He said, hey, it's something I'm open to. It's something I could possibly dabble with. He said, but I wasn't thinking about that before Deion Sanders. That was not something that he was thinking about before Coach Prime. And now this is something he could possibly be interested in. And that to me is huge because we know that just like Deion Sanders, Jerry Rice can bring a ton of resources to whatever school he chooses to be a part of. We know, just like Deion Sanders, that Jerry Rice, that kids, young high school players in the transfer portal or whatever, would want to come play for Jerry Rice because of all the knowledge and all the game that he can give to them. Now, let's take a look at Kyle's article. We're going to take a look at Kyle's article and talk and see why some of the other things that Jerry Rice said. It says, in this also, just imagine this. Imagine that. Deion Sanders coached Prime as one coach, versus Jerry Rice as the other coach. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime at Jackson State versus Jerry Rice at Mississippi Valley or at Prairie View or at Southern or at, some other HBCU school. Preferably, a lot of people would prefer it to be at Valley. But imagine that. Two of the greatest football players ever, like two of the greatest football players to ever lace them up at an HBCU program. Two of the greatest to ever lace them up, patrolling the sidelines at schools that would love and appreciate them like no other. This would be a match made in football heaven. Like, quite frankly, this would be a match made in football heaven. I don't think anybody else could draw this up the way that these two could potentially do it at their respective schools if Jerry Rice decides to get into coaching. Now, this comes from Kyle's article. It said, could a clash of this magnitude become a reality? Well, according to the legendary wide receiver from Mississippi Valley State University, it is not as far-fetched as it sounds. Rice and I had a candid chat. I asked the Hall of Famer if he has contemplated becoming a head coach. He said, quote, not until Deion with Jackson State, said Rice, because I felt like I played the game for such a high level. I was totally committed, and I just poured everything into my career that I didn't have anything left. Because as a coach, you really don't have a life. And I mean, coaching, it's hard, man. It takes up a majority of your time. But yeah, it takes a total commitment. And if you got to be all in, so it started to cross my mind just a little bit. Now, this is awesome. Because this isn't a full commitment of becoming a head coach for Jerry Rice. This isn't him saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to be the head coach. Yeah, I'm going to, jump into that. But it lets us know that thought is now crossing his mind. It lets us know that thought is actually there. It lets us know that there is some form of interest. And that goes a long way because now that schools, whether it's in the SWAC, NEAC, CIAA, whatever, now that schools know that Jerry Rice could potentially be interested, specifically schools in the SWAC, though, even though it lets them all know, but the schools in the SWAC in particular, it lets them know that if I have an opening, if my job becomes open, I could go out and contact Jerry Rice, and he's going to take a listen. He's going to listen to what I have to offer. Now, I have to get my pitch together. I have to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's. I have to make sure all my ducks are in a row. But now I know that there's possibly something there. It says, a 7-on-7 contest between the Jerry Rice team and the Deion Sanders team during the summer would be a great introduction for Jerry Rice. It could possibly be, Joe. That is something that could do it. But see, that's the thing. Jerry never considered coaching. This was not something, as he stated, what we just listened to, we'll run it back later in the broadcast. It's not something he really thought he was going to do. It's not something he really wanted to do. But he's seeing the impact of Deion Sanders. See, a lot of people like to deny exactly what Coach Prime is doing at Jackson State. You can't deny it. There's too many examples of the impact that this man is making, whether it's in the coaching realm, whether it's the impact of the city of Jackson, HBCU sports, Jackson State University, Jackson State football program, et cetera, et cetera. There's too many examples of the Prime effect actually taking place. And this is just the latest of a series of examples. Jerry Rice, to some, the greatest football player to ever play, is now considering taking a job as a coach at an HBCU. This is something he admitted that he did not want to do. Now, some of you may not know about Jerry Rice in his college career. A lot of us know about Jerry Rice, the Super Bowl champion, and, he leads every statistical category as a wide receiver in the NFL. He holds all those records: touchdowns, catches, games played, yards, all that stuff. Like, all of that belongs to Jerry Rice. All of it. Like single season records and all kinds of stuff. Like, Jerry Rice was doing that in the 80s and 90s when receivers really weren't the primary targets of the offense. The NFL was a running backs league. Running back and the quarterback made good plays on third down. But Jerry Rice set all those receiving records and still hold those records, and he played in the 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s, because he lasted that long. So I'm going to, yes, Mike, he went to Mississippi Valley, and we're going to look at how great Jerry Rice, he was a first-round pick out of Mississippi Valley State in the 80s, and I'm going to show you guys just how great Jerry Rice was at Valley. Now, this is taking a look from his Wikipedia page. You can say what you want about Wikipedia. They tend to get it right. It says Rice attended Mississippi Valley from 1981 to 84. He became a standout receiver and acquired the nickname World due to his ability to catch anything near him. In 1982, Rice played his first season with a redshirt quarterback by the name of Willie Totten. Rice caught 66 passes for 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns as a sophomore. So think about this, guys. In 1982, the man caught 66 passes for 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns in 1982. Together, Totten and Rice became known as the Satellite Express and set a number of NCAA records in a spread offense of Coach Archie Cooley, nicknamed the Gunslinger. You got to think, these guys were putting up these kind of yards in the 80s. Football, not just NFL football, but college football as well, was a running back sport. It was all about the running backs in the offensive line. They hand the ball off 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It was all about running the ball. And this is what Jerry Rice and Willie Totten was able to do at a little bitty school in Mississippi called Mississippi Valley. Rice had a number of record-setting 1983 season, including the NCAA mark for receptions at the time, 102 catches and receiving yards, 1,450, and was named first team Division I AA All-American. He also set the single-game NCAA record by catching 24 passes against Louisiana's Southern University. As a senior in 84, he broke his own Division I AA reception record with 112 catches in a season and 1,845 yards. His 27 touchdown receptions, 27 touchdown catches in 1 year, guys. 27 touchdown catches in 1 year. In that 1984 season, set the NCAA record for all divisions. The 1984 Delta Devils scored 628 points in 11 games. Now let's do some quick math because I'm not a math guy, but I need to see 628. So we're doing 628 divided by 11. That's 57 points a game, which averaged more than 57 points per game subsequent to an August practice experiment. Cooley had Totten call all the plays at the line of scrimmage without a huddle. The result was even more staggering offensive numbers. Rice caught 17 passes for 199 yards against Southern, 17 for 294 against K-State, 15 for 285 against Jackson State. He scored 5 touchdowns in a single game twice that year. Rice was named to every Division I AA All-American team, including the Association Press AP squad, and finished 9th in Heisman balloting in 1984. In the Blue-Gray Classic All-Star game played on Christmas Day, he earned MVP honors. He finished his career with 301 catches, 4,693 yards, and 50 touchdowns. His NCAA record for total career touchdowns reception stood until 2006 when University of New Hampshire wide receiver David Ball recorded his 51st touchdown. Come on, man. In the spring of 1999, the school renamed the football stadium from Magnolia Stadium to Rice-Totten Stadium in honor of Rice and Totten. Rice was inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2006, and he was in the inaugural class of the Black College Football Hall of Fame class of 2010. Guys, Jerry Rice was nasty. Jerry Rice was ridiculous. Not only is he a football legend, he is a HBCU graduate and an HBCU football legend. To have Jerry Rice back in the HBCU football space as a coach on any level, head coach, assistant coach, I would love it for him to be a head coach, but even if he comes back as an assistant coach for any team, it doesn't have to be Valley. It'd be storybook if it was Valley. It doesn't have to be Valley though. This would be remarkable. this would be game-changing. See, I've been talking about the impact, the economic impact of someone like a Deion Sanders or someone like a Hugh Jackson. Their economic impact in 1 year, what they are able, what Prime has been able to do, and what Hugh Jackson will be able to do in 1 year, will be able to set these schools up, set these programs up, set this conference up, the SWAC, for decades. It will put them in the trajectory for decades to be headed in the right direction. You add someone like Jerry Rice to that mix. You add someone like a Jerry Rice to that mix. You add someone like a Jerry Rice to that mix. The impact will be astronomical. The impact will be astronomical. Jerry Rice is a football player in every sense of the word. And adding him as a coach with his work ethic, with his drive, we know the time. And Jerry Rice's work ethic is legendary because he was never the tallest. He was never the biggest, fastest, strongest. He just went out there and made plays. And he went out there and made plays because he outworked every single person that was on the field, including Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders couldn't even cover Jerry Rice. As great as Deion was, he couldn't even cover Jerry. He couldn't. And so just imagine that work ethic being put in as the head coach of your favorite HBCU program. It's working pretty good for Prime. It seemed to be working pretty good for Hugh Jackson. He's only been there for a few months. He's pulling recruits out of the woodwork. He's getting recruits from everywhere, especially the Los Angeles area, coming down to Grambling, Louisiana, coming down to the boot. Imagine what Jerry Rice could do. Imagine what Jerry Rice could do. Now, Bam says, I wonder if his heart is in the coaching. Deion coached out here in Dallas 15 years at the youth level. And see, okay, Bam, that's a good question. So that is a really good question. The thing is, the reason why I say yes, it would be because Jerry Rice doesn't seem to be the type of person, especially when it comes to the game of football, to half-ass anything. He's not going to half-ass it. So if he's going to sign up to do it, now he hasn't agreed to do it, and he hasn't even fully said that he's going to do it. He just said the interest is now there, which is good enough, which is a good start. Because you could have asked Jerry Rice a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he could have had any of these HBCU jobs that he ever wanted. He didn't want them because the interest wasn't there. Now that the interest is there, the spark has been lit to hopefully what could be a perfect match. If he decides to do it, he's going to put his all into it. He's going to go out there. See, that's the beauty behind having a guy like Primetime, having a guy like Jerry Rice, having a man like Hugh Jackson. Once they get into it, they're not going to half-ass it. Prime, the reason why he isn't satisfied with the job that he's doing at Jackson State quite yet, it's not because Jackson State isn't having success. Jackson State's having a ton of success. It's because he wants to dominate as the head coach at Jackson State the same way he dominated as a football player for the Atlanta Falcons, for the San Francisco 49ers, for the Dallas Cowboys. He wants to be able to go out there and put his best foot forward, and all he knows how to do is succeed. He did it his entire career. He wants to do it his entire coaching career. He wants to do the same thing. And so he has that mindset. Jerry Rice has that exact same mindset, if not on that plus some, because we know Jerry Rice, his work ethic is documented on how great it was. I mean, you don't get all these numbers. I'm about to show you guys. Look at these numbers. You don't get these numbers by being lazy. You don't get these numbers on accident. There's been a lot of NFL players. There's been a whole lot of, look to the right of the screen. There's been a lot of NFL players. A whole lot of NFL players. There's been a ton of NFL players throughout the history of the NFL. But none of them have this resume. 3-time Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 23, 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 10-time first-team All-Pro. This ain't Pro Bowl. Everybody gets in the Pro Bowl. This man was a 10-time first-team All-Pro. A 1-time second-team All-Pro in 2002. Think about this. He got to the NFL in 1985 or 1984. He was a second-team All-Pro in 2002. That's almost 20 years apart. This man is a beast. Like, this man is his work ethic was different. 13-time Pro Bowler, 6-time NFL receiving yards leader, 2-time NFL receptions leader, 6-time NFL touchdowns leader. He led the NFL in scoring in 1987. Don't forget he made the All-Pro in 2002. Led the NFL in scoring in 87, made the Pro Bowl in 2002. NFL All-Decade team in the 80s and in the 90s. NFL 75th anniversary all-time team. NFL 100 anniversary all-time team. Number 80 retired for the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers Hall of Famer. 2-time All-American at his alma mater at Mississippi Valley. An NFL record in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and total touchdowns, and career all-purpose yards. He's goated. He's the NFL leader in touchdowns. People, please, in the comments and in the chat, please tell me, how do you win football games? You win football games. The winner of a football game is the team who has more points than the other team at the end of the game. The way you score points, get the most points, most bang for your buck, is getting what? Touchdowns. Well, Jerry Rice is the leader in career touchdowns, not just receiving touchdowns, which he has 197 of those. He's the leader, the NFL's all-time leader in total touchdowns. So if the purpose of the game is to score more points than the other team, and Jerry Rice has scored more times than any other player who played a game that the purpose is to score more points than any other team, what does that make you? That makes you a GOAT. That makes you a GOAT. And Jerry Rice is the GOAT of all GOAT. He played in 303 NFL games. He started in 280 84 NFL games. So let me just do this math because you guys know I ain't good at math. So if it's a 16-game season and Jerry Rice played in 303 games, it's 19 seasons. It's 19 seasons while averaging 14 yards a catch and scoring over 200 touchdowns. There's nobody within even spitting distance of Jerry Rice when it comes to being a receiver. There's nobody within spitting distance of Jerry Rice when it comes to a football player in touchdowns. There's nobody in spitting distance. Like, they can't see the man. He's so far ahead of everybody in the NFL. And he did all of that while coming out of Mississippi Valley State in the 80s. Yeah, Jerry Rice is different. And he did all of this, you're right. And he did all of this when the rules benefited the defense. Pass interference wasn't called like this, like it's called now. It wasn't called like that in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. This wasn't a quarterback-friendly league. This wasn't a passing league. And it's been a passing league for a long time now. Hell, they even added a 17th game. And there's still no one that comes close to the numbers Jerry Rice put up. He's been out of football for a very long time. There's been no one, not T.O., not Randy Moss, not Calvin Johnson, not Antonio Brown, not anyone that comes close to what Jerry was able to do while he played in the NFL. No one even close. So just imagine that man roaming the sidelines as a head coach in the SWAC, in the MEAC, at Mississippi Valley State, at some other HBCU. And that matchup between Jerry Rice versus Deion Sanders. They had plenty of battles as professionals at the NFL level. They had plenty of battles. Cornerback, receiver, goat, mano y mano, you versus me. And they each won. Jerry won a lot. Prime won a lot. And just imagine those two battling it out as opposing coaches. As opposing, the storylines that would come from that. Do you guys understand the implications that would come from that? That storyline, Prime versus Rice, Deion versus Jerry. What? Oh my God. Oh my God, we're getting more people. So for those of you who don't understand, Jerry Rice has expressed interest. He expressed interest to my guy, Kyle T. Mosley of HBCU Insider of HBCU SI. I'm going to play that audio one more time because you all have not heard that audio. I want to be able, because some of you are coming here late. I want to play that audio. I'm going to share my screen and play that audio of Jerry Rice potentially, it's all potentially becoming a head coach at a HBCU program. Let's take a look.
Have you ever really contemplated being a head coach?
Not until Deion, Jackson State, because I feel like I played the game for such a long time, and I was so totally committed, and I just poured everything into my career that I didn't have anything left. Because as a coach, you really don't have a life. I mean, coaching is hard, man. It takes up the majority of your time. And with the San Francisco 49ers now, I still just go in and I'm just like a mentor. I just talk to the guys and just pass that knowledge on. But yeah, it takes a total commitment, and you got to be all in. So, but it's starting to cross my mind just a little bit now.
Starting to cross his mind. Hey. Some of y'all at home might be like, well, Jeff, man, he didn't really commit to anything. He didn't say a whole lot. He said a whole lot to me. He said a whole lot to me, because that lets me see. And for those, you guys know I talk about Jackson State a lot, because Jackson State's worth talking about. They make a lot of headlines. They're doing a lot of great stuff. And the prime effect is real. A lot of people wanted to disregard the prime effect and what it has done, not just to Jackson State, but what it has done for HBCU football and HBCU culture across this country. It has brought a lot of eyeballs. A lot of you guys are here watching my channel right now because of what Deion Sanders has been able to do at Jackson State. And so folks can hate on Jackson State, JSU, all they want. The proof's in the pudding. It's just the truth. I'm just out here telling the truth. And Jerry Rice himself right there just admitted that, hey, I'm interested now because of Deion. I'm interested because of Prime. That is point blank, period. The prime effect, in effect. The prime effect, in effect, is Jerry Rice saying he wants to be a head coach, or potentially his interest is there. Let me not over exaggerate it. His interest is there. And you're right, absolutely right, Veronica. This is awesome news, because before his interest wasn't there, and now his interest is there. And there's no guarantee that he'll become the next head coach at Valley or next head coach of whatever your favorite SWAC school is, but his interest is there. And that's more than what we could say at first. His interest is there. And I am excited about it, because the storylines that would come the day Jerry Rice is hired by any HBCU, any of them, it would be amazing. The recruits he would be able to pull in, just like how Travis Hunter, the number one cornerback, the number one player in the country, said, I want to go learn from the best. I'm a corner. Deion's a corner. Deion's the best corner ever. I want to come learn from the best corner ever. Imagine all the receivers from the transfer portal and from high school. You want to come learn from the best. Come learn from Jerry. Imagine what his staff would look like. Deion's staff was amazing, with guys like Dennis Sturman, guys that coached the NFL, guys that coached in high school, guys that coached in college. Imagine Jerry Rice's staff. What his staff would look like, all the connections he has. The possibilities are endless. The possibilities are quite endless. And even though, like I said, he hasn't agreed to do anything. But his interest is there. And that's all you can ask for. That's more than what was there before. And that is quite literally all you can ask for. Once again, my name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Subscribe to the Black Boss Channel on YouTube, and subscribe to my YouTube, Jeff Lightsy Jr. That is Jeff Lightsy Jr. on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the thumbs up button. I'll take a few comments before I get it out. I get out of here. Someone said, man, Valley had an opening. They did. And they have Coach Dancy. So that's why I'm not calling for Coach Dancy's job, because Dancy's doing a really good job at Valley. Like, you guys got to realize Mississippi Valley State is a very, very small school in a very, very small town with very, very, very limited resources. And so the job that Coach Dancy has been able to do at Valley while he's been there has been remarkable. Kevon says, I think it's crazy of how fast the shift has been for HBCUs. We're literally pro pipelines. We are these leagues. Y'all don't doing black. Yeah, thanks, man. And the change, all it took was one trendsetter. It took one guy, one man, Deion Sanders, to be the trendsetter. and be the conduit for change. And that's exactly what's taking place. He was the trendsetter. He was the conduit for change. And now the change is taking place. And now we're seeing all these guys with interest. Now we're seeing all these guys taking jobs. Now we're seeing all these guys talk about, how they want to give back and make a change. And now we see the actual, not just global impact, but the economic impact. A lot of people aren't talking about that. It's about the money at the end of the day. And the money that is changing hands from one person to another, from this part of this organization or this person to an HBCU is remarkable. It's remarkable. So that is all I have today on today's broadcast. Once again, you've been watching Jeff Lightsy Jr. at the Black Boss channel and Victory Formation. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, guys, on your way out. Thank you all for tuning in and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.